Imagine your CEO walks into a Monday morning meeting, still buzzing from a viral tech demo they saw over the weekend. They drop a directive on the table. We need to integrate a large language model into our core product, shipping by next quarter. You are instantly caught in a trap. If you push back on the timeline, you get labeled an obstructionist. But if you accept the mandate as is, you commit your engineering team to a project with zero defined boundaries and infinite scope creep. The standard product management playbook assumes you can scope a feature based on a series of guaranteed logical steps. However, when you introduce the variance of machine learning, these rigid frameworks overlook the complexity of how the system responds to real-world data. Building a product involves far less time writing requirements or testing code than most people assume. The reality is that the vast majority of a product manager's day is spent navigating organizational politics, running alignment meetings, and managing stakeholder friction. When you throw a massive technological shift into that environment, the system fractures. Right now, 85% of product managers lack the specific skills required to actually evaluate and scope AI products. Projects that go off the rails don't usually fail because the machine learning model couldn't perform. They fail because the humans leading the teams couldn't manage the expectations of the executives asking for it. For decades, executives have been conditioned by deterministic software. You put an input into a rigid flowchart, yielding a single guaranteed outcome. But AI relies on probabilistic models, generating the most statistically likely output. Because the system is guessing, it generates hallucinations. There is an infinite matrix of edge cases impossible to map out. The leadership team usually doesn't know this shift has happened. When the AI returns a bizarre result during a demo, they don't see the inherent nature of a probabilistic model. They see a bug and blame the engineering team for failing to code it correctly. Success depends on moving stakeholders away from binary pass-fail expectations and toward an understanding that AI performance exists on a statistical gradient. The conversation almost always starts with a demand for a specific piece of technology. Someone decides the company needs a chatbot, skipping the step where you identify what customer pain point you are actually trying to solve. Your first tactical move is a diplomatic pivot. You must validate their excitement about the tech, but immediately pause the build process to ask what specific market need this will address. As a product manager, your role is to act as the messenger of the market. You have to take external facts from your customers and inject them directly into internal corporate debates. Even the most sophisticated machine learning model is useless if it targets an issue your customers don't care about. Rigorous problem definition becomes your strongest defense against the momentum of corporate hype. Because you rarely have direct authority over executives, you have to use objective data as your shield. You lead the team through influence, not by dictating terms. When someone insists on an aggressive timeline, let them make their case. Once they finish, you counter those demands by laying out the actual financial and computational costs required to handle the inevitable edge cases. This requires a shift in how you talk about the work. You have to stop promising guaranteed features. Instead, frame these AI initiatives as research and development bets. This matrix shows how you evaluate those bets. You force your stakeholders to look at the massive technological complexity and expenses on one axis and weigh that directly against the measurable benefit to the customer on the other. You aren't trying to eliminate risk entirely. You are forcing the entire organization to agree on the exact boundaries of that risk before your engineers write a single line of code. Survival in this role requires viewing the case itself as the opponent to be solved, rather than the people who proposed it. When you are told to just add AI, validate the stakeholders' excitement, pivot the conversation to the actual market problem, and map out a realistic, probabilistic bet. When you execute this correctly, you take the deterministic goals of the business and the probabilistic realities of the engineering team and lock them together. The competitive edge in AI development belongs to the PM who can translate boardroom ambitions into realistic technical bets.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe and like.